It's that time of year again, Halloween. A time for trick-or-treating, costumes, pagan rituals, and let's not forget, scary movies. The horror genre is one of my favorites. As a kid, I grew up watching Godzilla movies, and then I was slowly introduced to the Universal monsters. All of them left an impression on me in one way or another. In fact, Frankenstein and Dracula hold a special place in my heart due to personal reasons. Yes, Universal released some of the most terrifying creatures upon the cinema. Vampires, werewolves, man-made monsters, mummies, invisible men and women, even mole people. However, would you believe that Universal's very first horror film featured a simple man as its monster? This would be the legendary Phantom of the Opera. There are of course many adaptations of the Phantom I could talk about, such as the Claude Rains one, the Herbert Lawson one, and of course the one everybody loves, the Gerard Butler one.
No! Oh my God,
no!
No!
That is the worst thing I've ever eaten.
That's not even, there's no, you can't even ask.
But for the sake of my soul, let's talk about the 1925 Lon Chaney film. The Phantom of the Opera was the first major horror film that Universal released. I'm excluding The Hunchback of Notre Dame because I don't technically consider it a horror film, but that's all up for debate. Both those films do have something in common though. Actor Lon Chaney, this incredible actor is prominently known as the Man of a Thousand Faces. Due to his astonishing makeup techniques, for each character he played, Chaney designed the makeup and applied it himself, even if it was sometimes painful. We'll get back to him later, but now let's talk about his arguably most famous role, the Phantom of the Opera. Based on the book by Gaston Leroux, the Phantom of the Opera takes place in the 1800s at the Paris Opera House. Rumors persist among the dancers, technicians, and even the managers about a ghost who lurks about the place. The central part of the story is a love triangle. Isn't it always? Our lovebirds would be singer Christine Daae, the Vicomte Raoul, and the masked phantom Eric. Eric is secretly training Christine to become a superior singer to the prima donna soprano Carlotta. Christine gets her night of glory and triumph, taking Carlotta's place for one show, receiving much praise and applause. Yet one night, Carlotta ignores the threats that the Phantom has given her and decides to perform the lead role. So the Phantom responds the way anyone involved in the theater would in such a circumstance. Drops a chandelier on the audience. Interesting to note, there was a real chandelier incident at the real Paris Opera House where one of the counterweights fell, and the chandelier fell on one of the audience members. Just thought I'd bring that up. Amongst the confusion, the Phantom takes Christine to his lair, beneath the opera. There, he confesses his love to Christine, to which she politely faints. Christine awakens to discover the Phantom working on his own music, and Christine decides that she must know the face of her mentor. She rips the mask off, revealing a hideous face, resembling a skull. A few pieces of trivia should be worth noting. First, this scene was so shocking to audiences, apparently some individuals fainted and screamed and fainted at the sight of Lon Chaney's face. Second, it was rumored that the actress playing Christine never knew what Chaney was going to look like, so her reaction to Chaney's face is legitimate. I would also like to go into a little bit more detail as to how Chaney was capable of creating this iconic image. First things first, he needed a bald cap with some pieces of hair. Next, he glued his ears back. Of course, there was need for grease paint to be shaded in the proper areas. For the nose, Chaney used a material called fish skin and attached it to his nostrils using spirit gum. He would then pull it back until he got his nose tilted the way he wanted. It is said to have caused immense bleeding from Chaney since the wire cut into his nose. This shows how much of an artist he was and how much he was willing to put into his work. Back to the story. The Phantom allows Christine to view her world one last time under the condition that she returns and never sees Raoul again. Christine agrees and, well, she does the smart thing and tells Raoul what the heck has been going on, and they plan to leave. Unbeknownst to them, the Phantom hears of their plan and vows vengeance. During her last performance, the Phantom abducts Christine, and it is up to Raoul and Inspector Leodux, a man who has been searching for Eric for some time, to enter the Phantom's catacombs and attempt to save Christine, while also trying to survive the deadly traps set up by the Phantom. They fall into one of them. The Phantom then makes Christine an offer. He will save them if she agrees to marry him. If she refuses, he blows up the opera house. Gee, that sounds reasonable enough. Christine agrees, and the Phantom releases the men and witnesses Christine embrace Raoul. After that, the Phantom realizes a mob is after him, like in every horror movie, so he grabs Christine and they flee the opera via a coach ride. The coach tumbles and the Phantom runs away, abandoning Christine. Eventually, the Phantom is cornered and he is beaten to death by the angry mob, who then throw his body into the river. Personally, I do not prefer this ending. It may be because I'm accustomed to the musical Phantom, or maybe it's because it was different in the book, but I strongly thought that the alternate ending was by far superior, and it made more sense. The original ending had the Phantom allowing Christine and Raoul to be together, only to die of a broken heart. When one views the redemption of the Phantom after Christine begs him to save the two men, it would seem clear that the Phantom would in fact decide to let Christine be with the man she truly loves. Instead, preview audiences found this to be boring and confusing, and they wanted a more big and thrilling ending. I don't think a thrilling ending works for a character like the Phantom. The movie was more about the emotions that the characters went through. Its main focus was on how the Phantom's obsession with Christine spiraled out of control and led to the main characters to consider him a monster, when in reality, he was nothing more than a misguided soul who was desperately seeking companionship. So, let's talk about our main character, the Phantom. He's a man who knows that he has power, the power to influence people to do whatever he wants, such as ordering the new managers to replace Carlotta with Christine. When he doesn't get what he wants, he is a force to be reckoned with, bringing down chandeliers, interrupting masquerade balls in order to deliver threats. The Phantom shows little fear, yet there is a vulnerable side to him, and that would be the part of him that yearns for the affection of Christine. The Phantom is willing to go through all sorts of tasks in order to bring Christine to the top, and all he wants in return is her love. When she unmasks him, however, she is mortified, and the Phantom realizes that any hope of having Christine loving him willingly is gone. Chaney does an excellent job displaying the tragic sides of the Phantom. After Christine unmasks him and he lashes out at her, you can see that he never wanted this to happen, or at least have Christine discover his facial features this way, as he limps over to a wall and rests his head on it as if he were crying. That's another thing that I love about Chaney, his ability to pantomime. Just looking at his body language lets the viewer know the emotions he was going through, and I can imagine that it was very helpful for viewers in the 1920s silent age to see such a visual performance. My personal favorite scene would have to be the masquerade ball, which was shot in Technicolor. Seeing all the elaborate and somewhat colorful costumes was thrilling enough, but what stole it was once again Chaney, dressed as the Red Death. That close-up shot of his skull mask looking directly into the camera was menacing. I was always very impressed and in awe of the opera itself. Universal recreated the actual Paris opera at the back lot, where parts of it still remain today at Stage 28, which I was thrilled to see when I went to Universal Studios. Legends say that the set was supposed to be torn down, but when crew members began taking it apart, a series of bizarre incidents occurred. Due to this, many people have said that it was the ghost of Lon Chaney who was responsible. Poetic, isn't it? The Phantom was an individual blamed for numerous accidents that occurred in the opera, with many people calling him a ghost, and now, Lon Chaney, a man who has played the Phantom, is now said to be a ghost who has also disturbed individuals who tried to destroy the set. With the success of the Phantom, Universal desperately tried to get Lon Chaney for their next project, Dracula, but unfortunately Chaney signed a contract restricting him to MGM, and by that time he had been diagnosed with lung cancer. On August 26, 1930, Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces, passed away, but his legacy still lives on this day. At one point or another, everyone has had to have seen that one shot of the Phantom's unmasked face and marveled at its distortions, wondering who could it be behind that mask. Thanks for watching. This is a Halloween O.M.M. review. More on the way, and what do you think of my new crib?